Ladies and gentlemen, let's make note of developing customer trust in the new age for luxury products with Group President Gitanjali Gems Limited. Please welcome Mr. Saurav Bhattacharya.
Good evening. It's important here that I start with a very simple mission. And the mission is, I trust you to trust me, to trustfully build with you the building blocks of what it takes to build trust with the millennials in the luxury segment at this 9:25 p.m. hour of trust. The evolution of trust from delivery to values, there is a significant amount of mismatch. What is this mismatch about? The mismatch is about what we give out as brands, as companies, and what the customer takes away in return. The truth is that no matter whatever you give, the customer expects more. Not just more, much more. Now, trust in terms of a shift, if we looked at it of what it was before, very clearly, trust was earlier a one-way communication. The panel has covered this. The esteemed speakers before me have covered this. They bought virtually everything that was communicated. So you could hide behind billboards, you could shout from the idiot boxes, and that is all that the consumers would get to see. There was no social media. Therefore, there was no reverse communication. And opinions would gather moss. Better put, they would probably stay buried. But then you've heard everybody saying that there are three things that have fundamentally transformed. And what are these three things? Today, we are seamlessly interconnected. We are interdependent. And most important, and it came across every single speaker's tone, and that was, we need to be transparent. We do not have a choice but to be transparent. So in today's world, moving on from the traditional, we are into this new age millennial world where we are talking about complete reliance on social media. On one hand, I talked about opinions gathering moss to a situation where momentum is the order of the day. Whether positive or negative momentum, it spirals before you can. Mr. Handa gave this example of what beauty could do or undo and how fast and viral it went. But I want to draw your attention to a couple of pointers there on the right bottom. 66%, that's two-thirds of consumers worldwide, actually still believe that they have a one-sided engagement with the brand, which means that the brand is telling you and the brand's not listening to you. And the second point, which comes across from the Edelman barometer, is that 70% believe that when a brand engages with them, it is with the sole idea of making profit. Now, here is a paradox, which I'll touch upon as I move forward. So in the earlier days, trust was an ashirvad. Trust was a blessing. Today, it's haq. It's a demand. And if you do not fulfill that demand, you will not survive, you will not last as a brand in the long stead. So I'm not going to labor on this, but we all know who the millennials are. And the most important aspect of this millennials are that they are socially, environmentally, and ethically extremely conscious customers. They are networked. They are very clear that they want more than just excellence. And most important, and all of us must understand this, that they are socially responsible. So I'll take an example back home, and it's a very interesting example and very dear to me. If I looked at the diamond jewelry space and sliced this vertically into three parts, the first part is about traditional hygiene elements. So in a diamond jewelry brand, what would you have to give? You would have to talk about grading, you would have to talk about hallmarking, you would have to talk about lab of, certificate of authenticity and so on. The new age consumers are not satisfied with just that. So what do they want? They want a clear understanding. And this is where I'm touching on the aspect of luxury hinging and sitting on a fulcrum above commodity. So they want to know, what if I exchange it? What happens? What's your buyback policy? They want to know what's the after-sale service if I want to reorient the diamond, and so on. But that's new age. What's the consumer going to look forward moving tomorrow? And that's the change and the shift in the paradigm. Ladies and gentlemen, important to understand this term. Some of you might have heard about it. You've got to surpass what the consumer not only wants, but you have to exceed, in order to build trust, what the consumer expectations are. So what's Kimberley process certification? We've all somewhere or the other heard of blood diamonds and so on. Kimberley process is the zero tolerance, which does not allow diamond from any unfiltered source to come into the diamond production industry. And we at Gitanjali ensure, though we have not marketed it that way, that 100% of what we give out is actually Kimberley certified. Now, this is actually a need. I said socially responsible. It is a very important point in the context of connecting to the future. When I talked about the Edelman barometer, I highlighted this point, that it is just not about trust being an act of compromise. It cannot have a profit motive. So what happens really? You need to provide what is called a Suraksha Kavach. And why I'm saying so is, it is a product where you don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't know what you're buying. Today, when you go to the store, you believe what the storekeeper is telling you. You get a certificate of authenticity, but you still do not know beyond that what you're buying. So if there is even an iota of lack of trust, then the whole thing comes crumbling down. So trust is not isolated. Today, in a diamond jewelry company, we've got to be very careful about where the consumer is interfacing. Gone are the days of just brick. Today, a consumer could interface with us at a store, which could be a company store, it could be a franchisee store. And the reason I bring it up is that trust has to be disseminated perfectly, even at a channel partner level. Because if there is a breach of trust there, you're finished. Let me give you an example, and it is very similar to the Nordstrom example. I'm sure you know about this, that once a customer walks in with a tire at Nordstrom, at one of the Nordstrom stores, and says, hey, listen, I've got a problem with this tire. So the store manager looks into the problem, says, don't worry, sir, we will have it replaced. So the customer says, hey, listen, but I don't stay in this town. I stay on the West Coast. When are you going to be back? Next week, Wednesday. Thursday afternoon, we will have it delivered. Next Thursday afternoon, the customer had a tire, a brand new tire, delivered at his residence. It's a different matter that Nordstrom does not deal in tires. A very similar example happened to us a couple of months ago. An army major wrote to us with a bill saying, my wife bought this silver jewelry piece at your store, and well, we checked it in the outside market. It's not sterling silver as it was sold to us. Sterling silver is a particular grade of silver. It's 925 silver. So he sent the bill copy. And lo and behold, what does the bill copy say? It says, Geetanjali, Geetanjali, Geetanjali Jewels. Where? In a Tier 3 city in Karnal, of Tier 4 maybe. So what do? We immediately had to, okay, there are two parts to it. One, we had to deal with Geetanjali Jewels, but we also had to appease this customer. So we sent him a bouquet, we sent him a genuine silver earring for his wife, took down his daughter and son's birth dates, sent them a watch, blah, blah, blah. Today, he has become for us, what would you call him? He is our trust custodian. And in this industry that we work in, it's very important that we build such trust custodians. It is very easy to write Geetanjali Trust Forever, But trust breaches every bend, every nook and corner, and we've got to be damn careful. There are three words, a simple working chart which tells you what one should follow. We try and follow this. We make customers feel looked after, or we try to do that. High standards of frontline staff. Training is so critical. But does training create trust? No. Just not enough. Trust comes from the way the expression happens in the dealing of the product, the service, everything. Trust is both singular as well as layered. So each of these elements, whether it is admitting mistakes, oh, we do a whole lot of mistakes. We get the pricing wrong, we get the bill wrong at times. All of this happens because we are a luxury brand, the 40th globally acclaimed luxury brand as per Deloitte, and yet we do mistakes. And we've got to put our hands up and say, listen, let's be honest, we do a lot of mistakes. But if we are not humble and we do not show humility, we are not going to last forever. So therefore, transparency, scrutiny, and accountability at every stage of the transaction is of paramount importance. So here is an example which interfaces the brick and click world. And why I'm showing you this, as you can see, I've got my shops right, but then I've got my shop-in-shop points in large format stores right, but what about e-commerce? Well, I'm not sure about it. So here is this lady who's been kind of prodded in the e-commerce space. She's been kind of looking into the website of a particular brand. And, well, she is walking around in the neighborhood when the store drops her a coupon. So in walks the customer. She is taken through a complete smartphone-enabled show window where she gets to see all that is there. Incidentally, this is an extract from Harvard Business Review article. But look at what is being said by the store staff here. It says, hey, Amy, here are the tropical clothes that you were looking for. Tropical clothes? Not winter clothes, tropical clothes. The power of trust emanates from the consumer understanding of a small nugget of information from the e-commerce space. This lady was looking for tropical clothes on the website, which is interfaced from the e-commerce, the digital platform, onto the brick by the frontline store staff. So she gets her to try it. What happens? She is trying, and as all ladies do, you give them a mirror and a cell phone in hand. A lot of selfies got taken. And when a lot of selfies got taken, what do you do with them? You send it to your friends. So immediately she sent it to the friends. And 3 of her friends gave her a thumbs down. So she had a decision of buying some and not buying some. But meanwhile, she liked the shoes. But when she scouted around in the online space, there was a drop in trust. The drop in trust came from the fact that there was a neighborhood outlet selling it at a lesser price. So look at the empowerment of trust dissemination from the frontline staff. She took a call there, right there, and said, we will match the price. And then she said, listen, I love the earrings, but they're too long. No problem. We will get that customized for you. The drops are too long, but I can't lose out on that sale. And by the time she is actually at the checkout counter, it's the cashier who's saying, Amy, do you remember you got a coupon? Why don't you use it? She could have just left it. Let Amy pay and get out. But no. Amy, you've got a coupon. Just check your mobile. Yeah, I do. So the checkout happens, but the transaction is not completed. As Amy is walking out, the digital screen throws up and tells Amy, listen, I miss showing you something. And Amy is actually transacting on our way out. And the small write-up on the mobile screen says, shipped, will arrive tomorrow. This is not just for luxury brands, but it is important and more applicable for luxury brands in terms of the price that you pay, the quality, the aesthetics, the innovation. More important than all of this is what is below. If there was a wad of cash here, and I did not pick it up despite the fact that none of you were watching, that is integrity. The things that luxury brands will do, irrespective of whether the consumer is watching or not, and irrespective of whether it is difficult for the brand to do, is what the true might of trust for a luxury brand is. We talked about transparency, we talked about scrutiny, but this aspect of selflessness, that I will go and do everything to ensure that the customer is completely not just satisfied, but I exceed expectations, is the paradigm where a luxury brand fits in the paradigm of trust. So if I was to go around and ask this esteemed gathering through a show of hands, the number of CXOs who are here, in all probability, many hands would go up, right? But for a moment, when I look in an organization and we get into discussion with HR on whom we want to recruit, so we've got a finance manager, we've got a retail manager, a strategy manager, HR manager, blah, blah. Ladies and gentlemen, when you go to your doctor, no matter however big, small, old he is, the only reason you go to him and not to a better doctor is because you trust him. Have we ever recruited this position? Have we ever got in our organization somebody called a trust manager? Have any one of us given a brief that, hey, Mr. HR, get me a trust manager? So I think the paradigm has shifted. The day X moves to T, and I'm not talking technology here, that day we will take a lot of sense away from what we've said here. If I was to ask for a show of hands and say, how many chief trust officers are here, we would all raise our hands because we, in some way or the other, are trying to build. But what I'm urging here, as a key takeaway, is introspect. Talk to your management and understand. Somebody alienated from everyday business who understands the element of trust. So you could ask me, how would you guys do it? So in a very small way, I've tried to put across what we try and do. It's a representative sample, so don't read too much into it. So we just said this. I'm going to talk about the Trust Health Scorecard. So what I've got here, and I've tried to do this in a very small way, is there are 5 parameters, and this is not our own brainchild. It is the Edelman's barometer, but we've kind of constructed, deconstructed to use it in consonance with what is relevant to us. We work on engagement, we work on integrity, we work on purpose, we work on product services, we work on operations. And one last thing that you're not going to ask me is what our health score is. It's terrible. But I'm proud to say that we have a health score. The question that you need to answer is, do you have a health score? Because somewhere down there, it's a very dirty and a difficult beginning to make, but we are trying to get there. So I'm not going to belabor these points of what is there and what, but what is really important to understand is for your business, for whether it's a product, it's a service, or whatever it is, whether it is in the mass market segment, whether it is in the premium, prestige, luxury segment, you will have your health. HR creates a balanced scorecard, don't they? So why don't you have a chief trust officer and a trust manager team building what is called your Trust Health Scorecard? In relationships, we all know that as humans, trust can also fail. Nothing is for perpetuity, right? And when we fail, and there was this example that of the wife falling and the husband watching out, even if you dropped her, you wouldn't want to head for a divorce. You would pick her up, say sorry, and try again and build back trust. But the truth is, the three key words: rebuild if you've gone low, build if you are afresh, and last but not the least, build or rebuild, but get your processes right so that you sustain over a long period of time on both the counts. Functional, extremely important, but what stays long-term, long-stead, unflinched, very clearly, is the emotional trust. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.